Forbes had a good laugh at the expense of former Trump Organization CFO Alan Weisselberg during Donald Trump's New York fraud trial this week. In a hilarious article released on Thursday, they accused Weisselberg of perjuring himself during his testimony. You see, Weisselberg took the stand as part of a $250 million lawsuit against Trump and his buddies, claiming they inflated Trump's wealth when dealing with banks. According to Forbes, the Trump Organization played fast and loose with the facts, like saying Trump's penthouse was a whopping 30,000 square feet, when it was actually just 10,996 square feet. But here's the kicker. Evidence presented during the trial showed that Trump himself signed a document 30 years ago, stating the actual size of his penthouse, which was then fluffed up on financial records. Oops. Looks like someone got caught with their hand in the exaggeration jar. The proof came in the form of an email attachment, and Weisselberg had the audacity to claim he never even bothered to look at it. Apparently, he already had the paperwork in his fancy corporate file, so why bother, right? And get this, when asked about the value of the apartment, he brushed it off like it was nothing. De minimis, he said with a smirk. Just a minuscule fraction of Trump's massive fortune. So naturally, he didn't give it a second thought. As for meeting with Trump and discussing the financial statements, nope. According to Weisselberg, that never happened. He's far too important to waste time on petty details like that. No, his main concern was making sure those property descriptions were top-notch. Gotta impress the banks, you know. Gotta show off those first-class properties. Weisselberg admitted that some of Trump's assets were overpriced, like his fancy Trump Tower penthouse. But when the state attorney asked him questions, he conveniently couldn't remember or didn't know the answers. Yet, it's clear from old emails and notes that he played a big role in convincing Forbes that Trump's apartment was worth more than it actually was. It's kind of hard to believe that Weisselberg truly believes what he's saying in court, considering how thoroughly he analyzed Trump's holdings for Forbes. Last week, a former Trump Organization official spilled the beans on how the company exaggerated the value of an apartment over the years. Apparently, they attributed it to things like the boss's popularity, and comparing it to another triplex that ended up selling for way less. And get this, the guy who spilled the beans, Weisselberg, actually just got out of prison for dodging taxes on $1.7 million in perks he got as an executive at the Trump Organization. Talk about scandalous. This civil fraud trial is definitely showing a different, more vulnerable side of Donald Trump. As the $250 million trial unfolds, it seems like Trump is getting more and more frustrated with what's happening in the courtroom. There have been times where he's visibly agitated. The trial is targeting Trump, his company, and his two eldest sons Donald Jr. and Eric. They're being accused of intentionally inflating the value of their properties for insurance fraud. But Trump has been adamant in denying any wrongdoing. At the beginning of the trial, reporters noticed that he seemed pretty calm during the arraignments in different locations. However, things changed on the first day of his fraud trial. People in the courtroom saw Trump shaking his head, crossing his arms, and even giving a glare to the New York Attorney General. These actions showed that there was a change in his usual pompous demeanor. By the third day of the trial, it became more and more obvious that Trump was getting frustrated. According to reports, he complained to his lawyers and showed impatience. While he mostly stayed quiet in court, his irritation was hard to hide, especially when Judge Arthur Engoron mentioned that there would be no jury trial. Trump has been very vocal about his belief that the trial is unfair without a jury, but the judge pointed out that nobody had actually asked for a jury trial, which raised questions about Trump's legal team's strategy. Witnesses say that during one incident, when Judge Engoron mentioned that formalities could be skipped because it was a bench trial, Trump grumbled, crossed his arms, and gave. This display of frustration continued when Trump turned to his defense lawyer, Alina Habba, and expressed his displeasure with loud groans and frustrated expressions. The former president moaned and slouched forward in his seat, straining his suit jacket, showing his obvious irritation. Trump and his legal team have experienced difficulties over the past 4 days, as they argued with Judge Engoron. The court reprimanded Trump's attorneys on Tuesday for arriving late following a break. In addition, a gag order was put in place to stop Trump from talking about his employees after he insulted one of his legal assistants online. Donald Bender, a former accountant for Trump, testified on Wednesday. Given the tight bond between the two men, Bender's testimony may have been viewed as a betrayal by the Trump Organization. The former president's outward displays of dissatisfaction during the proceedings, as well as his complaints about not being able to hear Bender's soft-spoken evidence, Further demonstrated is mounting annoyance. Trump's responses and manner in court offer a window into the difficulties he and his legal team are dealing with as the civil fraud trial progresses. The trial's evolving dynamics raise concerns about Trump's apparent annoyance and its potential to influence the narrative around this crucial legal dispute.